So
Give me a
it's not.
chance, I need that statute back. It's not-
Sorry?
I need that statute back when you get a chance.
It's
No.
just
Oh.
more being unified. Not having to
Oh,
reinvent
that's
things.
what it is.
That's what it was. There you go.
I had a lot of my travel was really starting, well, they're old now. It was tough, and then when they were in school, playing full time, and they're old, and late teens.
Yeah, so my kids are still too young to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to go watch, it's 12 and
Right.
that's just, especially.
Yeah, that's what.
Not that stuff, yeah. That's good.
She's my ride back home, so she doesn't come, somebody else will give me a ride home. My wife dropped me off.
Knock you off a little, chase the pig in the woods.
Yeah.
Doesn't catch it.
There's a pig running loose, you guys wanna go get a pig?
Oh, your name.
Over on,
Pig running
over in your
loose?
neighborhood, I heard.
Five-foot pig up on Mail
On
Road.
South Road or Lear Road, I
Is there a
guess?
farm up there that's missing it?
Somebody's.
Next thing you know, we're gonna have,
Reggie shotgun is in his trunk.
next thing you know, we'll have all these feral pigs like down south.
Yeah.
You familiar with that? It's
Girls just
amazing.
down the
They're
road.
just
Running around.
everywhere.
Yes.
It's like open season all year round because I mean, you know how destructive they are. They just
Every
destroy
once in a
everything.
while, when I'm driving up Gillette to go home, I'll see one of Weingart's, cows out. One day there was a baby calf that was out, and this thing, I said, how the hell did this thing get out? I'm looking to see if the fence was down somewhere. And then I just stopped, and it was walking towards me. Actually, I called Dan, and I said, forget it, he jumped back in. It just went on the side of the road, and it jumped off of a little rock over the barbed wire fence back into the
Really?
farm. This is a smart little cat. Yeah.
All right, interesting story, I'd like to call the meeting to order now.
Yeah, let's go.
The entertainment portion of our.
Yeah, we have to get the local stuff out of there.
I figured one might lead to another. Evening, everybody, I'd like to start the meeting by seating of alternates. We have no alternates to seat, so we'll move on to the next item, which is adopting or revising of the agenda. Pretty basic agenda for tonight. Does anybody have any suggested changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is approval of the minutes from the September 13th regular meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting?
I know that.
Do you have a second?
A second?
Would anybody like any discussion about it?
I have probably more of a clarification. I'm not sure if we can remember going back last month, but on the fourth page, first paragraph, so it says, the last sentence says, Board of Finance member Fitzgerald and First Selectman Jerome will check with King and King for their insight into this. This is around the topic of that account that we're looking at for the Board of Ed, which we're still working on until next month, but I don't remember us agreeing to do that or if I was part of that, so I'm not sure if it's just, so, do you remember if you talked to them, or was this even an item that we agreed that we were gonna talk about with King and King on their insight for this?
I don't mind calling King Ken, I haven't called them yet.
It seems to
But
me,
they-
As Andy
Okay,
saying, they're
I
coming
just
in
heard her, yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay, so you have a copy of that statute also? We just
I have it
maybe,
here.
Yeah, I mean, we had it
Okay.
last meeting, it's already big.
okay, yeah, that's what I said, that's why we need to have some language around it, but I don't remember being on task to,
No, you don't need
Talk
to
to them,
handle
okay.
the operational aspect,
All right.
Andy and I will question
Okay.
them when they come in tomorrow, we'll give you a
are
better.
you asking that you be stricken, your name be stricken from that sentence?
that's probably a good point, yeah.
I do recall
Yeah, just-
that coming up, and I don't recall you specifically being one that was tasked with it, but
With King, correct.
Yeah.
So I think it was really Dan, Reggie and I agreed to do the back end work on the, as a subcommittee. Okay, all right, thank you.
so are you asking for, I'm not clear, are you
Yep,
asking for an
I
amendment,
would-
or are you all set?
I would like to make a motion to amend the minutes to strike that last, strike my name from that last sentence.
Okay, do you have a second to that motion?
Sure.
Any more discussion on that? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? One abstention? Okay, any more discussion on the acceptance of the rest of the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the approval of the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And abstention again. Okay, I'll set with minutes. Next item is opportunity for public to speak. Public comment. Yes, can you state your name and street address?
I'm Dan Eddy, 22 Loomis Heights, New Hartford. And I'm here as a member of the Recreation Commission. And I need to read this because I'm so nervous. Even reading it probably won't come off very well. But I'm coming to this meeting, and hopefully will attend more future meetings as a rec member, in part
Any other copies?
because I do, and I didn't know. In part because I wanted to discuss finances, which is what you're all about, prior to the confusion of the holidays and the upcoming budget season. A brief history, and I think you probably all know this, but in 1967, the town established the Rec Commission. You have a copy in the second page of the initial charge to the commission. It's a very short charge, it's less than half a page, and I'll read the part that I think is pertinent. Said commission shall have the authority to establish, maintain, and operate such parks, playgrounds, swimming areas, and other recreation places and programs as it deems desirable for the residents of the town of New Hartford. Said commission shall have all the powers necessary and proper for the established maintenance and operation thereof, including the power to contract and whatnot. And this goes to the financial point. See, I'm lost already. During the last 9 years, under the guidance of John Massey and the implementation of Dennis Minor, with the cooperation from the selectmen and this board, the Rec Commission has advanced the quality of life in New Hartford by leaps and bounds. I understand we all have done our best to minimize expenses during the last few years, but it is very important we don't become penny wise and pound foolish and lose all the gains that we've achieved in the last 9 to 10 years. The most valuable asset most residents have in this town and any town is their home. We only need to look to the north to understand how easy it is to emphasize current savings and forego future growth. On roads with one town on one side and the other town on the other, it is not unusual to find a 30% difference in residential values, which means that if you live in one town with a $200,000 house, it's very real that right across the street from you, the very same house is only worth 1/4. This is where the vast majority of individuals' equity lie today, even though people look to their savings account and retirements account, their homes have the vast majority of their equity in it. The Rec Commission had allocated much of its capital budget 3 years ago, but had not spent it. It was approached by the selectmen to return about $25,000 of that capital budget. It did so. It was allocated for Brown's Corner, a very important project in town. As soon as the next budget was passed, the Recman came back and asked the Rec Commission to part with approximately $30,000 of that capital budget. The Rec Commission did so, again, to bring about the completion of Brown's Corner. During the last budget session, there was $140,000 set aside for the Rec Commission. Not so. The selectmen allocated $90,000 of that $140,000 to work on Brown's Corner again. The remaining $50,000 was allocated by the selectmen to put a roof on the old gymnasium in Brody North, leaving the Rec Commission a zero capital budget. The only reason the Rec Commission never passed along a recommendation for the demolition of that building was because various community groups came before the Rec Commission offering to raise all of the funds necessary to restore that building. So if someone else was gonna pay for it, we didn't wanna destroy it. The Rec Commission has never felt the expenses required to make this building a viable asset for the Rec Department could be justified. It seems now that this building may become a storage building for the town equipment, and that's probably fine. Maybe it's what it should be used for. At this point, no one has taken a serious look at how that may impact the recreational use of Brody Park. Given the location of there's a couple of the sides I'm throwing in, obviously, given the location of the building, it probably won't impact it. It's in the far right corner and doesn't really impact the rest of the area. But if that's the case, if this building is going to be used for storage of town equipment, the Rec Commission should not be charged with a capital budget item for $50,000. I request that that be properly placed somewhere else in the overall budget. This means that the Rec Commission has no capital funding in this last budget cycle. Returned 60% of the prior year to the selectmen and returned 50% of the second prior year to the selectmen. In prior years, the proper funding frugally spent by the Rec Commission has rebuilt the tennis courts, created new basketball courts, improved heating, air, and the floors in Berkshire Hall, so now it's virtually fully rented, producing income for the town. Improved some of the small cabins with roofing and lighting so that they're used by various organizations in town. And most importantly, increased and improved nearly all programs for the residents of New Hartford. Please, at your convenience, take a look at the last page of this, which is a 6-year recap of the increase in participation in the waterfront and our CAC, all of which generates income for the town and couldn't be done without the support of the selectmen and your committee in prior years in allocating capital monies. I hope during the upcoming budget period, you see fit to continue to support the Recreation Commission and reinstate our capital budget so that we may continue to increase the quality of life in New Hartford for all the New Hartford residents. I won't be here at the next meeting, I'm gonna be out of town, but I will try to attend as many meetings as possible so that if you have any questions of the Rec Commission or if there's any input that I can provide that may be helpful, I'll be at your service. Thank you very much.
Dan, are you here as a designated spokesperson for the Recreation Commission tonight?
The Recreation Commission did not tell me to come, but the majority of the members of the Rec Commission know that I'm here presenting this because it came up at our last meeting that there's a great deal of concern that without funding, we can't carry on the charter and we become a moot swan within the town organization.
Second question is, has the Rec Commission officially gone to the Board of Selectmen to review their concerns and budgetary issues and things that you're describing here? Has there been a formal meeting with the Recreation Commission and the Board of Selectmen?
John Massey and I have had more than one meeting with the selectmen.
We've met before. I think the disconnect here is the difficulty the Rec Commission is having grasping the new capital subcommittee that's been was starting to evolve and being reestablished roughly 3 years ago by Bart Baxter, and now has come into full. I think we all remember the budget process where we started discussing the singular nature of the project at Brown's Corner and the expense to get that eyesore repaired. And then the budget process where we went to talk about the specifics of the septic system that they wanted to do, but the lack of preparation in doing that. There was no homework, no engineering, no jurisdiction. And while the capital subcommittee thought that that was a worthy project, and we have continued to discuss that project here.
Yeah, it
Now,
wasn't ready for
It
presentation.
wasn't really ready for presentation, it didn't
To
pass
budget,
muster.
right.
I think it still sits high, but I think the difference in the process being of what Dan is speaking to is that, there's been, prior to my election, $50,000 of unvetted capital spending there.
I don't think you have to answer what's put in front of us here tonight, because my next point was gonna be, if it's been vetted with the Board of Selectmen, it sounds like it's an operations issue and not a Board of Finance issue. However, if you guys have met and you're at odds with each other, I would consult this board to see if they're interested in looking at specifically the financial aspects of it, and then it would be, we would put it officially as an agenda item, so both sides in a dispute would have a chance to present their case. But if it's a choice of where the money is going, fundamentally, that's an operations issue, it's not a Board of Finance issue. The Board of Finance approves spending that's presented to us, makes some changes to it. Frankly, in my personal opinion, just as one board member, I think we've funded recreation tremendously in the last several years. And when I think of recreation, okay, recreation to me is a corner over at Brody Park, and anything and everything that happens on that corner, and it's Brown's Corner, and anything and everything that happens on that corner, regardless of who's initiated it, okay? And I'm probably missing another section as well. But it's that, whether it's this commission or Dennis, who may not be the rec commission, or the selectmen, it's people putting taxpayers' money into a designated area of the budget. That's my personal view, and I doubt if I'm alone on that.
Well, I don't know that Dan and I are on opposite sides of the coin here. It's just I could see both perspectives. I was the one advocating for the septic system until the last meeting when hard decisions had to be made. You know, it's never easy to get down to the end to find out where we go with our money and how we spend it. But ultimately, this board has to review all those things, and then you get down to vetting where you feel we can justify spending a certain amount of money. And when we all looked back at it, that septic system and that rec capital for $25,000 was in the budget pretty much to the last day. And didn't make it because it wasn't really prepared to go. Now we're studying it, we have Leonard on it, we're tracking the water, as continuing to vet the jurisdiction. And I know that there's always gonna be another project.
Because I don't think we should be taking up as an agenda item or as a major part of our discussion, one member of one commission's opinion on something that's not necessarily designated as a spokesman for that board. And if they are, it's an operations issue. I think we have to have some discussions about whether or not it's appropriate for us to dig into an operations issue. Those are the two questions. So first is the Recreation Commission asking to have time with the Board of Finance? If so, we need to consult me to get it on the agenda in advance. And then something like this, we have to decide, I think the board itself has to decide, is it a Board of Finance agenda item or not? So I want a little bit of notice so I can talk to the board. Yes, Dan.
This position is not unprecedented. We did the same thing with the superintendent several months ago when he came looking for money and did not bring it to the board. Procedure, Dan, is that you need, if you are the spokesman for your rec commission, you need to have a fully approved resolution backing this completely. And in my opinion, to have a benefit selectman, your rec commission needs to sit down with the board of selectmen or the first selectman or whatever. Our job is to create a budget, pass it on to the town, have the town approve it. I understand what you're saying here. Frankly, with the septic system up there, I was one of the ones who voted no against it simply because I felt that the design and presentation of it before me was a little premature. I didn't think it was ready to go, and 25,000 or whatever you asked for, I thought it was going to be too low. So, long and short of it, my suggestion to you is go back to your board. If this is your position, and I understand what you're saying, there's nothing I haven't heard before, have them approve a position. Bring it to the selectmen, and the selectmen and the rec commission want to sit down with the board of finance and talk about the budget for next year. I as a member would be glad to do that.
Now, this, as I say, this is in preparation for next year's budget. It's just I wanted to relay the concerns of the rec commission. It's nothing specific, it's the septic system, we understand how that came and went, we understand how the monies came and went. It is, and so now you're explaining to me more proper procedures, that's fine, but this is not a specific, this is not addressing a specific instance, it's simply to inform another major commission in town what is going on in the rec commission.
Okay, but the selectmen are in charge
Okay,
of your
no,
budget.
I
okay?
understand.
They are. The rec commission by
understand
ordinance
what you're saying.
is in charge of the park, but the selectmen as a whole are in charge of
Right,
your
and
budget.
I don't want to take up your time for debate because I didn't come here.
It's not a big debate, it's a fact.
Well, we can't carry on our commission without finance, our charter.
But who signed your checks?
Without,
Well, it sounds to me like we're getting into this farther than we should.
right.
We are.
I
I
just
don't
wanted to
want to
ask
take
something,
it on.
if I may.
Sure, hopefully it's gonna be about the capital subcommittee.
It is. I am part of the capital subcommittee, and everyone here was aware of every project for the next 5 years that you guys had put together. We discussed all the projects, what we felt was, that the subcommittee recommended more than others. They're fully aware of what your wants and needs are, and also, one of the things on the list was work done to the field house. Dennis had put on there, or whoever put on the list, was some bathroom and I think some lighting. So,
For 2
and
years out.
and I know that Mr. Jerem spoke to Dennis and he said he really wanted to get some programs put into there. So it was our understanding that this was I'm just explaining that it was something that we really wanted to invest in. And if we're going to save the building, we needed to have the roof, rather than some cosmetic work, we needed to work on the infrastructure. And that's where we based a lot of our decisions on, was, were there some basic infrastructure projects that needed to be taken care of, and the septic was the number one on the list. And so we're all aware of what the projects are that are out there, and I am planning on sending out my next round, like I did last year. What is your next updated 5-year list? And it's gonna go to the rec commission, to the town, and to the Board of Ed, and I hope together get, the information back in time so that we can discuss it again for the next budget process.
It's good to get a jump on it
Thank you
early
for your
so that
time.
when it comes down to putting it in the budget, which we've got a ways to go before that happens again. But it's a lot of work to get quotes and understand what the real costs are and just make them a viable project. We had some projects with the school that wanted to be done and probably should be done at some point in time, but they really, it was hard to give them real proper consideration because the numbers were just so soft. They just weren't firm enough yet to say, let's put that in the budget and count on it happening. So now's the time to get into that. And when Alicia leaves this board, someone else will take her place as the capital subcommittee chairman, and we'll be getting the input and working that process well in advance of budget time.
Thank you very much for your time.
You bet.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Ben, can I make one, if you don't mind? I wasn't going to, but one of the things that I look for from this board is that the same criteria are applied to everybody when you look at projects that are going to be approved or not. Through today, I still don't know what the 90,000 for Brown's Corner, the second 90,000, is supposed to accomplish, and nor does anybody else. Nothing was ever presented to the board. I've been here, I've had discussions with the first selectman, okay, and that was approved. So I just wanted to put that as part of the record, that we need to apply the same criteria all around.
I think the difference being is that we have an approved site plan there, Marie. It's
But you
approved by
have the
zone and
money, but you have the money.
and we have an approved site plan.
So
There's
there
no
is- there
approved
is a
site
plan.
plan
We're
for a
aware
septic
of the
system at
plan.
Brody Park.
And you know exactly where that 90,000 is going to go, as far as the board is concerned.
I personally, we know more than what we need to know about where it's going, okay?
Okay.
What we need to know is that there's somebody that's responsible on operations, has a good plan for the project. And that one has a pretty well-documented plan.
Okay, then you you know more than I do. Because sitting here at the board and listening to the discussions, I certainly didn't get any feel for where 90,000 is going to go. And a lot of people are asking the same questions. Thank
At
you.
budget time, we were presented
Thank
a
you.
list on all that, Maria, and you were shown that list. I'm the one who showed it to you. It was up at Antolini School. You were asking that question during the budget process when the Board of Finance was reviewing the budget, and you brought the same question up as to what was being spent on, and you were concerned that it wasn't out in the open. I went and actually dug it up, and I showed it to you. I'll be glad to go back in my documentation and get it.
I saw a list, okay? Whether that is a list that is going to be implemented is something
Well,
else.
then that is a matter of management. You, as a citizen, need to go talk to the first selectman about that. If we have, are you saying that that's not being spent in that way, according to the list?
I don't know, I hear different things.
The invoices are a matter of record.
Well, it sounds to me like what you're describing so far is you're getting input from different area. I don't know if it's hearsay, I don't know if it's fact, but what I do know from the sounds of it, it's an operations issue that you should collect what facts you do have and consult with the Board of Selectmen, First Selectman.
We have an approved site plan, the money will be used to finish the parking, all the ADA requirements, the signage, all the tree work that has to be done, as well as all the Department of Public Health issues. We had a guy out there repairing the non-conforming well casing. We have septic that has to be added to conform. We have utilities that are gonna be buried. We have a lot to do, but we have an approved site plan that we're working with from our zoning commission.
Okay.
Which
that
is
we will
everything I
complete.
recall being discussed during the budget process. It would be helpful, Dan, if you could just send out a list to refresh us as to what exactly is going on over there, please, just so that we as the Board of Finance, we're not the executive board, you and the other members of the selectmen, but I would like to see it myself, please.
No problem.
Thank you.
I'll attach a copy of the approved site plan for it.
That would be great.
If you do that, could I also request for the field house as well? Because there was a lot of ambiguity as far as where the 50,000 was actually going to go for the field house.
I'm not concerned about the field houses right now.
We
Just
have,
send
our
it to the Board of
consulting
Finance,
engineer,
or,
just so you know, did,
Tom's Corners, please.
I don't wanna get ahead of ourselves, but Maria's asking a lot of questions without a lot of backup. We have an approved design spec from our town engineer that is quite specific where the money is going.
And did you have that at the time the budget was passed?
Well-
That's the only point I want to make, thank you.
I think the
I don't-
difference, and we actually
Dan,
discussed
we-
this
we
during
can have
the budget
discussion.
process, was I think it was a little bit easier to understand fixing a roof than a multi-building septic system that had to possibly deal with DEP, Department of Health, or Farmington Valley Health. It's a little bit more, you know, the information needed to make an informed decision is kind of a different level with regard to the septic system as it is to repair a leaking roof. But we do have that information.
Originally, I think 20,000 was
Is
supposed
this
to
a
be
debate?
for.
Again, I don't want to get
Well, I don't
into
want, I don't want.
I've got-
You made your
so-
point.
Okay.
It sounds to me like what you're saying is you don't have all the facts, but you're carrying on a debate about it. I'm not interested in the Board of Finance participating in that. Once it's vetted, if there's still an issue out there, I'd love to hear about it, make it an agenda item, and have a proper discussion about it. This isn't the time or the place for it.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. First one is the bookkeeper's report. Annie?